Okay, so you picked up a camera and you thought, yeah, you're gonna go out, you're gonna shoot, you're gonna make all these beautiful cinematic videos, and then you go out there, you try to make these videos, and they just don't come out the way that you thought they would. You see all these videos online, you see all this footage in movies and TV shows, you wanna replicate them, and everything else looks beautiful, but the videos that you're shooting, the ones that you're shooting just don't seem to look right. They just feel like something's missing from them. And I know exactly how that feels because I was literally in that same position that you're in right now. When I first got my camera, I literally thought that just getting a good camera would have done half the work for me. I thought, yeah, just get a good camera and then I'll be able to make amazing videos. And I very quickly learned that that wasn't the case. Even the camera that I was using before, had I spent more time kind of learning it, maybe I would have had to get a new camera. So yeah, this video is also for those of you who are thinking of getting a camera as well. Do not get one before watching this video, because the camera that you have right now might just be the perfect camera for you. But we're not gonna waste any time and we're gonna get straight into this video. So the first thing that I didn't really have a good understanding of was actually focal lengths and how different focal lengths can actually have a very big impact on how your video looks, how it feels, and overall how cinematic it looks as well. If you've watched any movies or TV show, you'll notice that they don't just stick to one focal length. They do a variation depending on what the shot basically needs. Sometimes they do a really tight shot, sometimes they do a very wide angle shot, and it's all dependent on what the situation is asking for, or sometimes you can even use them as an artistic choice. But yeah, when you're first starting, you're probably looking for that cinematic feel, you're looking for that movie feel, and if that's the case, then I would recommend kind of looking at tighter lenses, doing more shots with tighter lenses, because they really help you focus on your subject. They create that separation between your subject and the background, which kind of gives your video a lot more depth as well. And overall, I find it a lot easier to get that kind of movie feel, that movie look, when I'm using tighter lenses. Let's say maybe from 50mm upwards, like a 50 or a 70mm lens, or even higher. I find that that really gives the image some depth. But that's only for the beginning. Don't just over rely on that tight lens forever. Eventually branch out as well, start exploring wider lenses, start exploring even tighter lenses. You want to have a mixture of wide and tight shots. You don't just want to rely on one. You want to really understand why you're picking a certain lens, why you're picking a 70mm lens for this shot, but you're picking a 20mm for the next one. There needs to be a reason why you're using each of these lenses. And to be fair, the only way you're really gonna understand that is to obviously practice with these different types of lenses, see what kind of images they give you, what kind of images you normally prefer, and just kind of play around with it. Eventually you kind of start to understand what situations work best for you, which lenses work best for you in whichever scenarios. But yeah, tight lenses are a cheat code for beginners. Remember that. If you're looking for that cinematic feel, then a tight lens is probably the best way to go for you. Now, the second thing that was missing from my videos that wasn't really giving it that cinematic feel, this is a very important one. I think this is the one that kind of makes it or breaks it. But it was not creating enough depth, or not creating any depth at all. You know, you can have the greatest camera in the world, but if you shoot an image and it looks completely flat, you're not really gonna get that movie feel, you're not gonna get that movie look. So you need to find ways to give it some detail, give it some contrast. That's what the depth is about. Now, there's many ways in which you can create depth, and one of them is playing with lighting. So making sure that you don't just have one completely flat image, but maybe, let's say you're shooting someone's face, making sure that you're shooting at the side where you can see there's like a shadow on that side, and you'll see how it's going to create that level of depth. It's going to really give it that kind of cinematic feel that you're looking for. And I think in the beginning, one thing I didn't do enough was actually look for that depth, look to create that depth. I was just kind of thinking, oh, I got a good camera, let me just shoot this. But I wasn't thinking of maybe if I shoot it from that angle, I might get more depth than I would had I shot it from that other angle. So these are like smaller details that you gotta think about, but they'll make such a big difference to your videos. And to be fair, that's what really makes the difference between like a beginner who doesn't really know what they're doing and someone who is a pro and knows what they're doing. You know, if you compare footage from a beginner and footage from a pro, you'd normally notice there's quite a lot of depth in the videos created by a pro, whereas a beginner, there isn't really that much depth. And depth doesn't just only have to be with lighting and shadows. It can also be where you position your camera. So, you know, having an object in the foreground will create some sort of depth for you. Or maybe bringing your subject closer to the camera. There can be other things in the background which will kind of give you that depth as well, that separation. You can even play with colors sometimes, but obviously with that, as you get more into it, then you're probably going to start thinking about those things a bit more. But yeah, if you're not thinking about depth, you're missing out on so much potential for your video. Depth is a non-negotiable. You can't have a image that looks completely flat. You're gonna feel like something is missing, and that's sometimes a thing. You kind of look at your video and think, what is actually missing? It doesn't look like what I'm seeing on maybe TikTok, on YouTube, Instagram, on TV, but I've still shot it with a great camera, but it's still just something's missing. A lot of the time that thing is depth. Another thing that you need to be doing is obviously color grading your videos. This isn't something that you can really skip, to be honest. If you really want your videos to look cinematic, you kind of have to get comfortable with editing, get comfortable with color grading, and it's really that simple. You just gotta keep doing it, keep practicing, and get yourself to a point where you're not just kind of playing around with the screen. Get to a point where every single color grading decision has a purpose behind it. You know exactly why you're moving that point in the graph or you're moving that color. Everything needs to be intentional. And one thing you got to remember about color grading as well is that don't think it's a way for you to save your video, save your footage. If you know that what you're shooting is pretty crap, the color grading is not going to save it. In order to have a beautiful color grade, you have to do the work in camera first. You have to make sure you expose your image correctly. You have to make sure you shot in the correct picture profile. You know, you have to make sure that you shot in the right environment, the right colors were around. Because the way I see color grading is you want to enhance your video. You don't want to completely change it. You don't want to add things that weren't there, but you just want things to be enhanced. You don't want to overdo it. And the last thing that I want to talk about is having too high an expectation too early. So you've just got your camera, you've barely had it for a week, for a month, and you want these amazing results. That's just not going to happen. You know, I've had people who they've barely used their camera and they're asking me, oh, but why doesn't my footage look a certain way? And the simple answer, to be fair, is because you haven't done it enough times. You don't necessarily know what you're doing. It's going to take a lot of repetition, a lot of doing it, trying again, failing until you get to a point where you're comfortable and you know what you're doing. But it's not just gonna come very quickly. It's gonna take time, which is a good thing. You want it to take time. You don't want it to be something that, you know, you can just get like that, because then it's not worth it. What makes this fulfilling is the fact that it is difficult at times. It is difficult in a lot of ways, actually, but you get that fulfillment only because it's difficult. So yeah, don't view the fact that it's going to take time as a bad thing. Actually be proud of it and put in a repetition, and sooner or later it's just going to click. But yeah, thank you for watching this video. And if you're watching this because you got a new camera, then good luck with your new camera. Make sure to actually learn the camera. Don't just give up because it's not what you thought it would be. Actually put in the time to master that camera. And if you're thinking of getting a new camera, don't get a new one until you've completely mastered the current camera that you have. But yeah, thank you, and I will see you on the next one.